Okay, hello year 13. This feels one, very weird, and two, this is a video going through 1.1 of your booklets. Okay, so you were asked yesterday to do some stuff on lawmaking. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the booklet, give you the right answers. So just kind of be going through it with me. I'll give you maybe some tips, etc. So first page is just literally a checklist. So what I suggest you do is check and make sure that you've got all the information. It's in your folder. You know how to do each of the different kind of criteria. And just make sure you've got some revision for each one, maybe an exam question. That would be really useful. So key little questions that you need to answer. The first one, nice and easy, is just parliamentary lawmaking and judiciary lawmaking. Number 2 is a bill. Number 3 is Donahue v Stevenson and Daniels v White. Number 4 is Whiteley v Chappell. Number 5, superior or higher courts. Number 6, just that there's kind of 3 structures. You've got the monarch, the House of Lords and the House of Commons. I would put for number 7 how statutes made. Remember, statutes are just fancy word for a law. I just put in Parliament or through judge-made law. Something about again the royal assent or using precedent to make decisions. So a green paper, remember, is just a consultation, so it's just kind of outlining an idea for a law. It promotes discussion, whereas number 9, a white paper, just gives a little bit more detail about the logistics of the legislation, any reforms from the consultation in the green paper are kind of amended there. And then number 10, so the difference between a green and a white paper is a green paper is there mainly to promote discussion for a wider audience, so the general public, whereas a white paper is just kind of making all the amendments, and it is not there to promote any sort of discussion. Now, difference between a bill and an act can actually be enforced by law enforcement, so it is an actual piece of legislation that can be enforced, whereas a bill, that's not the case at all. So a bill can't be enforced, whereas an act can. So 7 stages. Okay, you've got first reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, third reading, and then at that point they repeat all those stages between the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Remember that the House of Commons always gets a priority, or they kind of make the final decision if there's disagreement between the 2 houses. Then you've got the royal assent, and then it becomes an actual act of parliament. So House of Lords, remember, they're just elected members. They've got expertise in specific fields. So a variety of different ones like medical, business, etc. Whereas House of Commons are elected. And they're the different political parties are there. Okay, so just review them and just give yourself kind of a total and see how you've done there. Now, this is just, we've already gone through all of this a million times, but it's just there for a little review. Now, the scenarios that you've got to do, what I suggest is if you're not sure about one, go back up and read this information and think, right, what stage would it be at? Is it government? Is it judiciary? And I would do that if I was you. So the little scenarios. The first one is parliamentary lawmaking. Now, this one's quite obvious because it says in the monarch. Remember, use the word monarch, not queen. You sound more intelligent. And it says that she's now signed the bill. So you would say that it's parliamentary lawmaking, and your explanation why is because it's in the royal assent stage because the monarch has actually signed the bill. And remember, that's ceremonial because we live in a democracy, not a dictatorship. Well, you can make your mind up about that after Boris Johnson's speech last night. The House of Commons, the second one, has voted for the final time. Again, it's got Commons in there. It's obviously parliamentary lawmaking, not judicial. And it says for there, they voted on the final time, which makes it the third reading because of that piece of information. Third one, easy. It says judge. Obviously, it's judicial. It says in there literally literal rule. So that's your explanation of that. A judge has used the literal rule. It literally is an example of the literal rule. Next one down. Okay, so a group of representatives review the bill, highlight issues. So parliamentary lawmaking, that's the committee stage, because a group has been started to review it and scrutinise it. Next one, the bill, Claire's law, my names have been read and voted upon. Okay, so again, that's parliamentary lawmaking, and that's just the first reading, when they literally just read it out and they decide whether they think it's going to proceed into any of the further stages or not. White collar commencement date. So again, that's parliamentary. If it says commencement date, it's just kind of the Act of Parliament stage. It's officially becoming a piece of legislation can be enforced. It's no longer kind of a bill once after the commencement date. Again, next one says judge. So obviously we know it's going to be judicial. It's got in there a case. I've made that up, but it's still got in there a case. And they say it's using a similar case to make a decision. So that's judiciary precedent. Next one, committee has been established to review the bill on white collar crime and report it back to the House. Now this one you might have put as committee stage because it says in there committee. However, the fact that it says report back to the full House, that's the report stage. So just make sure when you're reading scenarios, you're checking the entire thing. So it should be parliamentary report stage because the committee are reporting back to the full House. And then the final one is parliamentary, and it's second reading because there's a main debate, and the second reading is where the main debate takes place. Okay, so those are all the scenarios. Now, exam questions. Outline briefly the process used by government for lawmaking. 3 marks, literally nothing at all. So what I suggest you do is be using specialist terms. Now, because it says government, you need to talk about parliamentary lawmaking, not judiciary. So I shouldn't see anything in there about statutory interpretation or anything like that. It should be who's parliament, monarch, House of Lords, House of Commons, stages, bill, green paper, white paper. You're literally just stating terms. You're not really explaining it in a great level of detail. And the same for the judiciary lawmaking. We've already done both of those questions previously. And if you have a look, just scroll down, there's a mark scheme there for you as well. So you can see kind of the stuff that you should be doing for that judiciary lawmaking one. So those are literally just knowledge questions. Do you know your stuff or not? Now, the second 2 questions, slightly more tricky, 6 marks is more, it's applying it. So if you have just, for the first one, explained judiciary lawmaking, it's going to be 2 marks as an absolute maximum because you haven't applied it. You have to read the scenario and decide which bits linked to judiciary lawmaking. So you've got in there the obvious cases. You've got the ginger beer, the decomposing snail. You've got the neighbourhood principle, modern day law of negligence. That's obviously making reference to the judiciary precedent cases, Donahue v Stevenson and Daniels v White. So all you need to do is basically exactly the same as what you've done for this question, describe judiciary lawmaking, but you apply it to the scenario. Okay, so you just put in quotation marks where you're referencing it. And I suggest that you do that when you talk about the cases. Okay, so you literally just explain judiciary involvement. So explain precedent, explain courts hierarchy, explain literal rule, and then go on and say judiciary precedent cases. This is where it clearly demonstrates the cases in the scenario, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so again, an application question. So Claire's law is an example of law that has successfully followed the stages involved in government lawmaking to receive the Royal Assembly coming from recent campaigns. What to focus on making the bill has been right. Okay. So with reference to the above text, describe government lawmaking, government involvement in lawmaking. What would need to and what would need to be done for the bill to become an act of parliament. So what I would do with you, if I was you, how I tackle this is I would again explain what parliament is. explain the difference between a bill and an act, green and white paper, and then I would literally go through the stages and I would talk about the fact that the bill's been drafted, it's in the third reading, this is what it would need to do to become an Act of Parliament. So it would need to go through the repeating, so it would need to go back through the House of Lords. There needs to be the royal assent and then the Act of Parliament, and that's all you need to do. Okay, so number 5, discuss government and 2 campaigns. So I would take this as basically 2 5-mark questions. So I would take, we've done Claire's law and Sarah's law. You've got a really brief kind of plan of what you need to do. I would focus on these 2 bits here, discussed at Parliament, so the issues that were discussed, and then the actual law policy. That's the important part. And yeah, I just take it as 2 5-mark questions. Okay, so those are the exam questions, quite nice and easy. Just let me know if you need anything or if you're struggling with anything. I can make you some more stuff, but it's all pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so what I'll do is I will send you, I'll put on the area, sorry, the SharePoint, the stuff for AC 1.2. That one's a bit shorter, so I kind of want you to get that done by the end of play tomorrow. And then we will do 1.3 Thursday, Friday. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you later.